Hi, my name's Steve and welcome to the Seaside Allotment channel, and it's time for the What Am I Sowing and What Am I Growing in February video. Now, February is not a great time for sowing seeds, but by the middle of February it's worth starting quite a few, and so it'll be quite interesting to take a look at what my little collection of seeds are for Feb. And January is an even worse time for sowing seeds, but I still sow a few, and that's for a good reason, because I'm trying to get some early seeds to repopulate some of the polytunnel beds and just get a few things going like spring onions and things like that. And quite a lot of those were only sown a week ago, so they're not actually showing any evidence of life right now. And that's one of the other reasons why sometimes it is worth sowing a few in January, just to check whether your seed packets are still viable, because I'm often using up seeds from last year, and I can sow them in January, and if they don't germinate, well, I'll just open a new seed packet and sow it in February. And I've not really lost very much. I haven't lost a month of growing time. I've probably only lost maybe a week of growing time, because light levels are so low at this time of year, things don't really grow very fast. So it's just a bit of a contingency really. If they grow, that's fine. I won't need to sow as many in February, and if they don't, well, just sow an extra tray in February, it's no big deal. So let's take a look at what we've got growing, and then we'll get on the computer and I'll show you what I'm planning to sow in February. Let's take a look at what we've got in the polytunnel. So here we've got some lamb's lettuce. We've got a few straggly little bits of sprouts. We've got some lettuces which are coming on quite nicely. There's some Cantarix and some Grenoble red. We don't need huge numbers of lettuces at this time of year. And then we've got some peas. They're going to go at the back of one of the low tunnels. And then we've got radish, and these basically just go wherever we can find gaps and basically just fill in. And there's the broad beans. They're the spares for the gaps in the main broad bean bed. And they're the beets, which are also spares for any gaps that open up in the early beetroot beds. Another tray of lettuces. The ones at the back are doing pretty well. Those are Grenoble reds again. And then these are lobjoits, which are not doing so well. Then these are perennial kale cuttings. And there's two different types here. There's this one which has nice, small, very tender leaves, and this one which has much bigger, more cabbage-like, sort of like a tree cabbage sort of leaf. So I've got those. I've just done those today, and I've got a few more down here which I did a few weeks ago. They all seem to be doing pretty well. Now I'm in the little greenhouse, and I've got some really nice, I don't know what that is, but cabbage, cauliflower. And then these are all little calabrises, and these are looking really nice. And these are all little cabbages. Again, very pleased with those. And then over here, what have we got? We've got some more calabrese, looking really good. A few more cabbages, lots more cabbages in fact. And then some more cauliflowers. And then down here, I think these are all Romanescos. And some more calabrese, and then the little sprouts, really small little sprouts. This is what we want really at this time of year. These will be just perfect come March when I want to plant them out. And then some more sprouts there, and some more cabbages. So all little overwintered plants are doing just lovely in here. I don't want them too big at this time of year, because plenty of time for them still to grow. They won't be out in the ground, as I said, until about March time. And then these are the furthest on of my overwintered brassicas. So these are calabrese, and I've got these planted in the polytunnel beds in between the lettuces. It's a similar story with the cauliflowers, again in the polytunnel beds, and I've got about 5 or 6 cauliflowers in here, and these are coming on really nicely. So these will be ready obviously before the cauliflowers that I've just shown you in the greenhouse, which are a little bit further behind, but it's a nice succession. It's a similar story with the carrots these are October sown carrots, which are not growing very fast, much slower than last year for some reason that defeats me. But I've got a few of these containers, and I'll soon be sowing in March probably my first batch of outdoor carrots. And then at home, these are the super early kales that I want for to start in cold frames and low tunnels, and this just makes sure that I've got a nice succession of kales, so when last year's are going to seed, these are in their prime. And I've just got plenty here actually, so I only need a handful of each. I've got some Nero Black Magic, they're just coming through, some Dazzling Blue, which is really lovely, some Winterbore Curly Kale. I did plant a few sprouts just to test them to see whether those seeds are still viable, and it looks like they're not, so that was a good test. Just some of my early heat loving plants. So I wanted 3 cucumbers, and it looks like I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of those coming up. I wanted 2 Ildi tomatoes, and I've got 3 of those, and no peppers. I'm just doing a seed test on these peppers to see whether these are viable or not. Nothing yet. And then there's the potatoes, and the Swift broke through about 3 days ago, and the Aaron Pilot have just broken through. So all of my potatoes are now up, and so I'm planting another batch. And Grow Your Own magazine just arrived today with a nice batch of seeds. So I do find these free magazine seeds quite useful. They saved me quite a bit of money, but also just introduced me to some new varieties to try as well. So I shall load those onto my seed database, and I'll show you what I got in a minute. Finally, the early peppers, they're doing quite nicely. Lots of new growth coming on these now. Just a continual fight with the green fly. So let's take a quick look at January sowings. So those Cantarics, they're up, they're good. Grenoble Red is up, all those Aquadulce are up. The Oregon Sugar Pod are up, as is the lamb's lettuce. The first sowing of the Navarra was rubbish, basically, so I think that seed packet was a bit old. Well, I know it was a bit old, so I've resowed those from a new seed packet. These green oak leaf lettuces are up, and those Loberjoits greens, they looked pretty dire, didn't they? So again, that was an old seed packet. Maybe it was just that. Maybe they just don't like being sown in January. The Aaron Pilot and the Swift potatoes, those are all up. And so I've moved some of those to the Polytunnel, and the rest are in the conservatory, which has made space for another batch, and that's basically the way it keeps going now. Just another batch every time I move them to the Polytunnel. The Ildi are up, and as I said, I need a couple of those. The spring onions are not up yet. I only planted them on the 20th, and so it's only the 27th when I'm recording this. So that's not surprising. They take a little bit longer than 7 days, but all of my kales are up, so that's fantastic. As I said, sprouts not up yet, but the cucumbers are up, and the peppers are not up. And again, I only sowed those 7 days ago, so again, that's not that surprising. But the radish are up, and the Navarra that I sowed a couple of days ago, and the stir-on spring onions that I sowed a couple of days ago are not up. And I've decided I'm not going to sow the carrots, because I've got so many carrots in the polytunnel at the moment. I just don't think I'm going to need them, and so I'm just not going to take up extra space, but I'm going to leave them in here in this sowing log just to remind me for next year that I probably will sow them. And this is the last batch of potatoes for January, so got those sowed as well. Okay, so let's take a look at February. So first up, these are the main crop onions, Carmen, and goodness knows how you pronounce it. Now these are going to be sown at the beginning of February, and most of this timing, a lot of this timing now, is based on windowsill space, because it doesn't really matter whether you sow at the beginning of February or the middle of February, or even towards the end of February. The difference probably is only going to be about a week or so in terms of actual time to maturity, just because light levels are so low now and things grow so slowly. So anyway, main crop onions. Then green garlic, that's going to get planted outside, and that obviously won't mature to full bulbs of garlic, or that I don't want it to. I just want to grow it in a shady spot and get some nice green garlic in May. And then there's some Ailsa Craig onions, and they'll be sown in the middle of the month along with some Zebrun shallots. And then I've got a whole range of cabbages, and so I've got mini savoys, and I've got red Drummond, and I've got red Fugo. Now these I find these grow a little bit slower than the sprouts and the colettes, so I'm sowing these in February, but they'll be planted at the same time as the colettes, which will be sown a month later. And then I've got some red kitten. Now I've got loads of spinach in the ground at the moment, but it's always nice to have a later sowing, because when mine starts running, the stuff that's in the ground now starts running to seed, these will start to take over. I'm going to do some more early cucumbers. Not very many though, because really cucumbers I'm going to do in March and April time. Well, actually successional, because I do them later on in summer as well. And then my main sowings of peppers, and that's the Romano variety and Nuez. And I've actually got two different types of Romanos there, so there'll be quite a nice variety of those. And then there's the asparagus, and obviously I'm not actually sowing that from seed, but I'm buying it, and that's just a reminder to tell me to buy it. And then this is the first sowing of the beetroot. I've got quite a lot actually overwintering. It's doing very nicely. I'm very pleased with it. But this is the first sowing of any beetroot this year. And it's really, I think, at this time of year, only worth sowing Bold Hardy. It's just so reliable early in the season. Other varieties tend to be not so cold hardy, but they also run to seed more easily. So Bold Hardy it is, and that will go into a cold frame. And then my next succession of potatoes, every 2 weeks basically, I do a batch of potatoes. And then this is an important sowing of lettuce for me, because this is the batch that will get planted out in March in the back garden under fleece, and this will provide me with lettuces all the way through spring and into early summer, when the next succession will take over. And so I've got Novara, Grenoble Red, Cantarix, Tessie, and this green oak leaf lettuce, which I had a few years ago and had a lot of problems with slugs with it, but it was such a lovely lettuce, and I haven't grown it since because of the slug problems, but I thought I'll give it another go. And it's incredibly cheap, like everything from Premier Seeds, really cheap stuff. But in this case, definitely one of the best lettuces I've ever had actually, so we're looking forward to growing that one again. And then some more chili pepper. Well, not some more, because this is the only chili pepper I think I'm growing this year. We're not a big fan of chili peppers. And then another batch of Bold Hardy, and gradually just keep on sowing beetroot, but for the moment just sticking with Bold Hardy. Other varieties come in later in the season. And then quite a few radishes. We've got quite a lot of radishes on the go at the moment, but it's not really there's not really much point sowing them too close together, because they still, again, they mature so slowly at this time of year that you don't need that many successions. And if you sowed them at 2-week intervals, they'd all just catch up with each other, because the ones that you sowed 2 weeks later, get more light, and so they grow faster. And then another batch of spring onions. I'm always sowing spring onions. These spring onions are going to be interplanted with these lettuces. And then a final batch of red kitten, spinach, and then my next succession of potatoes, and the last succession for February of the radishes. And again, I'm always sowing radishes. I don't always know where I'm going to put them, but whenever I've got a bed that's sparsely planted, let's say it's an early brassica bed or something like that, I'll just bung radishes in. Whenever I've got a bed where I have some sort of crop failure, I just bung radishes in. So I'm always sowing radishes, but I don't generally put a bed of radishes in. Radishes just fill in gaps that just open up. So that, I think, is roughly my plan. I don't need 2 of those. Is my plan for February. And just as a little aside, the Grow Your Own magazine appeared today, and that had quite a nice selection of seeds in it. It's got some nice celery, some snowball turnip, which is really useful, some leeks, Ailsa Craig onion, little gem, an interesting orange red pepper, an orange sweet pepper, some parsley. I've got so much parsley. Some chard, Ford hook, aubergine, which I've never grown before, not sure whether it's worth it, some Alton King carrots, which I'm not massively keen on. If it's wet, they seem to split a lot. And in the post arrived some Cantarix, which is one of my favoured lettuces for summer. And wouldn't you know, when I get free seeds of Ailsa Craig, also in the post, were some that I bought. And so that was obviously quite annoying. There's the ones that I bought, actually. But fortunately they've got a sell by of May 2023, whereas the ones from Grow Your Own are March 22. So not going to waste. So I hope you like that quick video, and as always, if you've got any hints or tips, or you're growing anything that I haven't grown, then let me know. I'll be interested to see. See you soon.